As you can imagine, we've spent the last few days, really the past week, talking mostly about my mom. We're blessed that she gave us a lifetime of memories to treasure. What's remarkable to me is that when we got together and talked about them and tried to describe her in words, we all kept coming back with the same words and the same descriptions. So here's just a few conclusions that we made about what made her so special. Our mother was effortlessly beautiful. I can absolutely see why my dad, back in 1962, would have been attracted to my mom when he met her in Doctor's Hospital in New York City. She was really beautiful. Little did he know at that time that there were very few things in this world that my mom cared less about than beauty and fashion, makeup and hair. She could have cared less. It was the furthest thing from her mind for her entire life. Her daily morning beauty routine consisted of brushing her wild Irish canning hair in whatever direction it chose to go that day, and setting off on her day. So when I say effortless, I mean it was really lacking any effort or interest at all. And of course, it goes without saying that she was far more beautiful inside than on the out. Our mother was decisive. She did not spend a minute of time worrying about things, dwelling on what might happen or what the consequences were. We had Dad for that. When it came down to it, she lived her life by following her inner compass, and decisions were probably not that difficult for her when she did that. Imagine being newly married, age 26, and moving from New York City, where you had spent literally your entire life, and moving to Alabama in 1965, the hotbed of the civil rights movement in exactly that time. The entire nation was focused on the state, and my mom was working in a hospital as a nurse. She was actually trained to treat people differently based on the color of their skin. So when she chose to treat a seriously injured black patient before a mildly uncomfortable white patient, she was reprimanded. She finished her shift, quit her job, and moved on. That's decisive. Another more lighthearted memory, we were on our way home in the car, and some combination of my brothers and I were causing her grief. Yeah. We don't remember exactly who, but we're sure we all had some role in it. She stopped the car on the side of the road and told us to get out. We did. She took off and drove home. So needless to say, it was a longer walk home. We sorted out all our differences and concerns. And again, Mom greeted us when we got back. My mother was tough. She was New York City tough. There are legendary stories about her from those days. Our favorite is one where she was on her way home, and I might get this a little bit off, but I know I have some witnesses. She was coming home from the laundromat with a big bag of wet laundry and came upon a bully in the neighborhood whose name was Red O'Connor. Isn't that a good bully name? Who was picking on her younger brother, Hugh. So without thinking much about it, she went into action, swung into action, and with one swing, leveled him with the wet laundry. And she earned her reputation in the hood. Later in life, this personal strength was put to great use to keep 4 teenage boys on track and in line, particularly from the mid-Dave through Damien era. Damien's friends lovingly gave her the name The Hammer. They called her that because whenever there were trouble to be had, Damien would get caught. And he got punished and grounded when a lot of his friends wouldn't suffer the same consequence. So Damien got hammered. My brother Matthew recently helped us understand that the hammer is a great name for her because she is what kept us together. A hammer's job is to place nails into wood and hold them there. And Mom did this particularly well during some of those toughest parenting years when it was most needed. My mother was the sweetest grandmother. I only realized this week and put together the timeline that during those hammer years, Lynn and I got married and had started our family right after that. So while she was the hammer on one side, she couldn't be further from that on the other with her grandchildren. The transformation was rather dramatic. Despite raising her own teenagers at the time, working in my dad's office as a nurse, and managing every aspect of our family household, she dropped everything, and I mean everything, when we asked her to watch Nicholas one day a week. There was nothing that she loved more than that. All of her grandchildren were blessed with her as their biggest fan and had a hard time believing the hammer stories. They really couldn't believe that she was ever anything but sweet and kind, providing them with love and support. My mother was proudly Irish. No doubt there. Anyone who spent more than a few minutes of time with her knew that she was so proud of her heritage and what her parents did to bring her to this country. She had respect for them and their journey to this country, and she carried that with her every day. My parents gave each of their 4 sons a middle name that was meaningful to them. David's middle name is Hugh, named after my mother's brother and a number of other relatives in the family tree. Matthew's name was Owen, name my mom and dad loved, and then they found it on the family tree. And Damien's middle name is Jude, who is the patron saint of hopeless causes. Now that was not foreshadowing because Damien has turned out perfectly. But my parents were worried because he was 2 weeks late and they were getting worried about his delivery. So that's where they were praying to St. Jude for a healthy delivery. And we have his intercession for that. My middle name is Canning. And as far as I'm concerned, I hit the jackpot of middle names. As a kid, I wasn't as fond of it. But when I grew up enough to realize and put it in perspective, I would trade it for nothing. I'm so proud to be the second in line of Canning Prices and to have both of my parents' name. So much so when our son Nicholas was born, he inherited it. And then in 2017, when our grandson Jackson was born, he did as well. So all 4 of us Canning Prices were together only a few short visits since Jackson was born, but FaceTime has been a godsend, keeping us connected. Every time Mom would see Jackson, a tear would come to her eye. That was before she tried to hang up on the call because she always wanted to push the red button. In what I believe is divine intervention, just at the same time that what Mom was losing her ability to talk, her great-grandson Jackson started to talk and has not stopped since. I believe those tears were Nana sending her love when the words began to fail her. My mother was the master of kitchen table conversations. She would spend every bit of her attention and time with the guests, her friend, chatting. She was a professional at this. You felt important, you felt connected, and you felt listened to. You knew she was going to tell you what she thought about things. She was never lacking that. But this talent was easily adapted to letters, phone calls, FaceTime. Anyone who has ever received a random clipping from a newspaper and a note from my mom, please raise your hand. Yeah, that didn't surprise me. Just to wrap up, I wanted to share an image I have with you. I'd like to ask you to close your eyes. Actually, 1 minute. So before last week when Mom passed, her immediate family was sitting at her bedside praying with her. Our effort was to make sure she felt all the love that we had and provide her comfort. She opened her eyes briefly in the direction that we were all sitting, and then peacefully took her last breath. It could not have been more peaceful. I had an image I wanted to share with you and ask you to close your eyes. Please imagine this scene. On the other side of that breath, I believe that God welcomed her into heaven as his good and faithful servant. Her work here was done, and as I see it, he greeted her and they sat at her kitchen table. If you've been there, you can picture it. It's a white Formica table with a wood grain center circa 1980. Hot tea is already poured in one of Mom's unique pottery mugs. And on the table, there were some of Nana's famous chocolate chip cookies, still slightly frozen. She had to hide them in the freezer from my kids. Now the tables have turned. God is completely focused on Mom, on her every word. It's their turn to visit, and she has now been freed from the captivity and confusion of her disease. They will engage like old friends, catching up and sharing stories. Before too long, God will invite Philip and Margaret to the table, who she has missed so much these last few years. Then my dad's parents will join in, followed by Kay Liss, Ann McGee, Teresa Riley, and Michael Garvin, among others. All of these loved ones will welcome Kathleen to her glorious new home. So as we pray for her today, think of everything that she brought into our lives, everything that was wonderful and amazing, and realize that that pales in comparison to the wonder that she has today. So our dearest mother, wife, friend, aunt, cousin, neighbor, until we meet again at your heavenly kitchen table, may God bless you.